Hello, poor people. How are you today? Quickly, I'm going to share the fastest way to become wealthy. As I said in the previous recording, wealth is not a consequence of intelligence. You do not need to be intelligent to earn a lot of money. And that's one of the most interesting things people at the top did, is to convince you intellect is a prerequisite to success. And you're smart enough to understand you've been disenfranchised from the outcome. Intellect is a constellation of experience. It takes time to become intelligent. As opposed to wealth, it can be earned in a day. So now convince without a lot of effort, reading a lot of books, engaging in tons of experience and wealth will take time, causes inaction. Also, it's worthy to note that intelligence without outcome also leads to frustration. So once you're intelligent and you do not have the results to back up your claims, it always ends badly. So one of the things you can do is to take the one-dimensional approach to wealth. There are two ways to become wealthy. The first, take the crooked approach. You learn a lot of life lessons, a lot of life experience. You become wise per se. The second aspect is the one-dimensional path, the linear approach as touching success, which is learn a skill, produce the outcome. For instance, if I become an engineer, I work 16 hours a day, my life is built to produce that outcome. So all my feeds are technological. I only speak in technological terms, and I go up to become a renowned software engineer, which leads to massive results financially. Now, I'm not wise per se. There's really nothing I can tell you about life in general. In fact, I think we are conflating issues because most people misunderstand life lessons and being able to solve problems spontaneously with being valuable per se. So you might understand a superior approach towards life, which is live frugally, invest, things of that sort. But you might not be valuable enough to the market to produce an income. That's where the frustration lies. So you have individuals who are intelligent, can communicate, articulate a point. You sit with them and you learn something new, but yet they are destitute of finances. Take the linear approach. If you are not valuable, it will not produce income. I'm speaking from a superficial standpoint, which is in general. Are there times where you engage with a rich man, he identifies the potential, places you on some kind of salary, or finds a way to link to link your value to his business or something like that? Yes, but in general, it doesn't work that way. There's a linear approach as touching success. Very recently, there is a man who deals in textiles. When he would import, he would charge 20% of profits on his produce, while other suppliers or wholesalers would retain at least 50%. Over time, the suppliers noticed the shift in the market, and instead of importing from places like China and going through the rigorous process, wondering would shipment ever arrive, taking the loss of some goods and things of that sort. So they decided to retain the 20% of the other guy and sell at their desired percentage. Now, for a long time, or if you observe from an external standpoint, the person A is missing out on a lot of profit. But creating a hegemony where you're the only supplier in that market at a 20% APR is profitable. So 20% of $1,000, that's what? 200 multiplied by 5,000 sales or thousands of sales, tens of thousands, it becomes profitable. Engaging with that kind of man who over time builds a large industry by repeating the process, you would not necessarily learn anything new. At least if you're a smart individual, you see people with enviable results and you think there's something special about them, or there's XYZ, they're out of this world. That's why it's famously said to never meet your heroes, because they're not special, they just did one thing. At least in my experience, the kind of people I've met with results, they're not necessarily all of that. Those are individuals who took the one dimensional approach to success. Now, the undoing of taking that straight path is over time you would invariably make mistakes that cancels out your results. So for instance, that guy would defer to someone who's more charismatic, more confident, has leadership qualities, because humans defer to professionals. If I ask you, sir, who do you want to do your makeup? The guy who left beauty school just yesterday, or the person who has been doing it for decades? Exactly. Now, you've not met these people, you have no idea their proclivities, you have no idea if one or the other is a nice guy or if he has a bad attitude. You're willing to tolerate all of that just because he's competent to provide those services. So competence is an equalizer. Things like gender, race, ethnicity, background, all of these are enhancers for incompetence, because I truly believe when you're competent enough to provide a service, people will value. You know you're valuable when pay is no longer a factor to meet you. But yes, the one-dimensional approach, the undoing, like I said, you would defer to professionals who would eventually become tyrannical because power corrupts. When a nobody suddenly heralds your company, it's only a matter of time before you get disagreements on things like leadership, the next phase of the company. He would be forced to build his own, taking along your best people. And in fact, you would have no idea what he just did, because you're not competent enough to identify the key players in your organization. So while one-dimensional approach is good, it can also be your own becoming. If not done with wisdom, or if not balanced, you might end up building $1 trillion conglomerate only to give half of your estate to some chick. That's lack of judgment. If you were smart enough, if you had gone through the crooked path and understood how life works, you would have signed a prenup. You wouldn't have ignored the whole tendencies and things of that sort. So while a one-dimensional approach is good, it helps recalibrate your mindset, build confidence that it's possible. You too can access this level of wealth. But it shouldn't stop there. You should also adopt the crooked path, learn the wisdom, learn new things. The linear approach helps deal with your mindset, because it's most likely you have a poverty mindset. You do not believe $1,000 is possible, or $5,000. Please understand, I went from sitting on the floor to learn how XYZ work to being profitable at least $5,000. Years ago, it was incomprehensible that you can do something and get $5,000 in profit. Profit and capital, they are two different concepts. Profit, like money less capital, profit. So it's mind boggling till it happens. Then from there, you can build your confidence to do even better things. Previously, to get wealth, you needed all of the aforementioned. You needed to take the crooked path. But in this day and age of technology, it has simplified things for you. Take those degenerate streamers, for instance. Do you truly believe that some guy who puts on diapers to make content is smarter than you? Exactly. So, a healthy balance between the crooked path and the one dimensional approach produces success. As always, my friends,